up, you guys? This is Louisiana with another video, and I will be talking about my Wes Craven weekend, which took place on April the 30th with Deadly Friend, and May 7th with The Serpent and the Radio. Excuse me, the Rainbow. I say radio. Sorry, Rainbow. So yeah, if this doesn't get any views, I will be making another channel. So yeah, I will be reading from Wikipedia. So to kind of refresh my memory, and then I'm going to comment along with it. So yeah, here goes. Deadly Friend is a 1986 American science fiction horror film directed by Wes Craven and starring Matthew Loberto, Christy Swanson, Michael Charette, Anne Twomey, Richard Marcus, and Anne Ramsey. Its plot follows a teenage computer prodigy who implants a robot processor into the brain of his teenage neighbor after she is pronounced brain dead. The experiment proves successful, but she swiftly begins a killing spree in their neighborhood. It is based on the 1985 novel Friend by Diane Hinsdale, which was adapted for the screen by Bruce Joel Rubin. Originally, the film was a sci-fi thriller without any graphic scenes, but a bigger focus on plot and character development, and a dark love story centering on the two main characters, which were not typical aspects of Craven's previous films. After Craven's original cut was shown to a test audience by Warner Brothers, the audience criticized the lack of graphic, bloody violence and gore that Craven's other films included. Warner Brothers Executive Vice President Mark Canton and the film's producers then demanded script rewrites and reshoots, which included filming gorier death scenes and nightmare sequences, similar to the ones from Craven's previous film, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Exactly, because there were a lot of very similar scenes, very similar to Nightmare on Elm Street. I figured that while I was watching this, and The Serpent and the Rainbow had a lot of nightmarish scenes in them as well. Due to studio imposed reshoots and re-editing, the film was drastically altered in post-production, losing much of the original plot and more scenes between characters, while other scenes, including more grisly deaths and a new ending, were added. According to the screenwriter, this version was criticized by the studio for containing too much graphic, bloody violence and was cut back for release. In April 2014, an online petition for the release of the original cut was made. So, let's get into the plot. At the beginning, which they didn't include in this, it showed a burglar breaking into a car. Guess he thought he was gonna break in and steal the car, and then when he realized when he was leaning in the car on the passenger side, he looks in the back seat and sees something. He said, "Oh, aren't you cute?" And that's when the arm reached out and grabs him by the neck. It was a robotic arm. Then when the whatever it was looked in the back seat, not looked in the back seat, looked out the window and realized that the mom and son were coming. He released them, and then the guy decided to go hide. And as the two got in the car, he was like, well, "What the hell was that?" So, teenage prodigy Paul Conway and his mother Jeannie moved into their new house in the town of Welling. He soon becomes friends with paperboy Tom Toomey. Living next door to Paul is Samantha Pringle and her abusive, alcoholic father, Harry. Paul built a robot named BB, which occasionally displays autonomous behavior, such as being protective of Paul. Paul, Jeannie, and BB meet Paul's professor, Dr. Johansson, at Polytech, a prestigious university where Paul has a scholarship. One day, Tom, Paul, and BB stop at the house of reclusive harridan Elvira Parker, who threatens him with a shotgun. The trio then encounters a motorcycle gang led by bully Carl. When Carl intimidates Paul, BB assaults him. Another day, while playing basketball. Okay, so before I get to that part, BB assaults that Carl guy by grabbing him by his nuts and lifting him up in the air, and that's when Paul was telling him, "You better tell the guys to go and leave us alone." So he starts yelling, and of course, he got him by the damn balls, because He ain't like grabbing him by the pussy. He getting grabbed by the ball sack. So he was like, "I'll get you." So yeah, another day while playing basketball, BB accidentally tossed the ball into Elvira's porch. She takes the ball away from them and refuses to give it back. Yep. And so on Halloween night, Tom decides to pull a prank on Elvira with the help of Paul, Samantha, and BB. BB unlocks her gate and Samantha rings her doorbell. When alarms go off, that's when Samantha started screaming and tripping on her ass from what I can remember. And they hide in a shrubbery nearby. When Elvira sees BB standing near her porch, she destroys him with a shotgun, devastating Paul. Yeah, it was a very emotional scene for him because he was like, "No, baby!" And they up there trying to grab him, drag him away, to save his life because you don't want to get shot up by this crazy old bitch. This crazy Karen with a fucking shotgun here. She's up there shooting up fucking machines and shit. You don't want to get wasted like BB. So, yeah, on Thanksgiving, Samantha has dinner with Paul and his mother, and Samantha and Paul share their first kiss. Samantha returns home late at night, outraging her father, who pushes her down the stairs. But there was also a scene where Samantha, she's this is before the accident. Samantha, she comes home, and I think her dad was asking her where she been and has she been at that boy's house or whatever. And I think there was a scene where she was in the bedroom and she wakes up, and I'm getting flashbacks of Nightmare on Elm Street because the whole scene, the whole house, the whole bedroom, and the way she looked, because she looked at like I can't think of that character's name in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies where she had that blonde hair. That was that look back in the 80s, that type of hairstyle with the blonde hair. So she wakes up and she stabs him, I think with the handle of something. She stabs him and the blood starts gushing out. Very, very similar to Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, it was, how Freddy had them cartoonish looking deaths. That's basically what this looked like, with the blood splashing, him talking, and that's when she finally wakes up. So yeah, and then like later, that's when it gets to the part when she returns home late at night, outraging her father, who pushes her down the stairs. At the hospital, Paul learns that Samantha's brain dead and will be on life support for 24 hours before the plug is pulled. As BB's microchip can interface with the human brain, Paul decides to use it to revive Samantha with Tom's help. Tom was trying to talk about, "You can't do this. This is insane. This is crazy." Don't take my word for it. I'm just going by, what I would say. You can't go into, because I think Tom, he somehow he was able to help them get into the oh yeah, it says the boys entered the hospital using a key taken from Tom's father, who works there as security. Okay, I see now. Yeah. And after Tom deactivates the power from the basement, Paul takes Samantha to his lab. He inserts the microchip into Samantha's brain and takes her back to his house, hiding her in the shed. Yeah, and that's when Tom was like he didn't want no part of it, that this was crazy, and that he didn't believe the idea that a human being can be reanimated via a microchip. But he showed him. So yeah, after he activates the microchip, Samantha wakes up, but her mannerisms are completely mechanical, suggesting BB is in control of her body. In the middle of the night, Paul finds Samantha staring at the window, looking at her father, and he deactivates her. So yeah, of course, I'm trying to see, did BB see her get abused? I don't think so, but yeah, some type of memory in her head remembers that he the one that caused her death. So yeah, the next morning, Paul finds Samantha gone. When Harry finds the cellar door open and goes downstairs, Samantha attacks him, breaks his wrist, snaps his neck. Yep. And Paul finds Samantha and Harry's corpse in the cellar. Horrified that he hides the body. Takes Samantha back into the. But I think what Samantha did was she put his head into the furnace. Think about it. Burnt skin furnace. Yeah. So, fire. Yeah. So, let's see. Where was I? Horrified, he hides the body, takes Samantha back to his home, and locks her in his bedroom and told her to stay here. And she looking confused, doing her eyes. She's a freaking robot essentially. Um, at night, Samantha breaks into Elvira's house and corners her. Man, this scene is insane. I've heard about it when Fangoria would tweet about it. You can keep in mind, this is my first time watching this movie. I'm like, okay, this must be the scene. Corners her by throwing her to the wall of her living room. As Elvira screams in horror, Samantha. You remember when they took that? You remember when Elvira took that basketball? Because actually, when Samantha came into the house, she started to stalk her and tease her, and throw the basketball. And she like, huh? So yeah, so Samantha kills her by smashing her head with the basketball stolen from Tom. And the thing about it, she just throws it, and it's like you would think she was throwing an explosive. I mean, her head just like boom, exploded to splatter to pieces. Like damn. I mean, she's a robot. Shit. So when Tom learns of Samantha's rampage, he gets into a fight with Paul and threatens to call the police. There was a scene before they went to go get Samantha's body from the hospital. Um, they were Tom and Paul were at the dinner table with the mother Jeannie. So when Paul did was while Jeannie was behind her back getting coffee or whatever she was doing, or was she didn't getting some other kind of condiment, some she was getting, and that's when Paul started to slip some type of sleeping drugs to her, something anesthesia or something like that, to knock her out. And that's that time when they finally came back home with Samantha's body and stuff, and they go into the living room, and that's when when Tom tried to revive his mom. I mean, he looked and said, I don't know, I think you gave her too much. She might be dead. So that's when Paul started shaking her, Mom? And that's when she finally wakes up. Oh, how long have I been sleeping? Yeah, because the way she fell asleep, she stood up, she said something, and then she just collapsed on the couch and leaned over. So yeah, that's what happened. But yeah, let's see. There was one scene that they didn't mention in this. Paul was laying down in bed. He was sleeping. He had on like a t-shirt and some boxers on. And so he feels something coming up in the bed, like something round. Again, this is... Let me keep going. So he gets up. He pulls the sheets back. And he sees like a burnt head talking to him. So I forgot what he said. That was the Samantha's father, Harry. And he like jumps up against the wall as he was talking to him, like, what the fuck? That looked like Freddy. I was like, this is so Freddy right here. So let's see. Yeah, that's when Paul had invited Tom to the house to talk to him, because Samantha was up in the attic. And when he called out to her, she like bolted past them to the other side of the room, like she was afraid. This may have been the scene before she went out and killed. No, this was much after. Sorry. And yeah, he had threatened to call the police. Tom did, and that's when they started fighting outside. Still being protective of Paul, Samantha jumps out of the attic window and attacks Tom with Paul and Jeannie intervening. Trying to get her under control, Paul slaps Samantha, resulting in her strangling him. Samantha quickly comes to her senses, lets him go, and runs away. As Paul goes after her, he again encounters Carl, who gets into a fight with him. Samantha goes back for Paul, grabs Carl, and kills him by throwing him at the incoming police car. She runs back to Paul's shed, where Paul comforts her and realizes she's regaining some of her humanity. However, the police arrive with their guns aimed at Samantha, who yells out Paul's name in her human voice. Yeah, because she was starting to become human now. But she was still robotic. She still had like a killer instinct in her because of BB. She was still trying to. Samantha, the actual Samantha, was actually still trying to fight through and become herself again. So yeah, she yells out Paul's name in her human voice. He runs toward him, trying to protect him, and Sergeant Volchek, played by Lee Paul, thinking she's trying to attack him, shoots her. She says Paul's name one more time before dying in his arm. I swear the way she had her arms and hands reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street too. Not too, but it reminds me of the movie too. So yeah, this movie was I like the movie. So later on at the morgue, Paul tries to steal Samantha's body once more. Suddenly, Samantha grabs Paul's neck and her face rips. Her face literally rips apart, revealing a terrifying variation of BB's head. Her skin strips away, revealing her half-robotic bones underneath. With a robotic voice, Samantha tells him to come with her. When a horrified Paul screams, she snaps his neck, killing him. And that's the end of that movie. I also like the music at the end where it's like, baby, baby. I thought that was really cool because ever since I heard that song, I'll tease my brother like, baby. But yeah, I like this movie. I would definitely recommend it if you wanted to take a break from other Wes Craven films, most notably Nightmare on Elm Street. You should really check out some of his other films. A lot of them still have those Nightmare on Elm Street elements in them, but they still different in certain ways. It's just like with certain writers like M. Night Shyamalan, a lot of his movies are very similar. And who else? You just like Clive Barker with Hellraiser, Candyman. A lot of the movies are they very, very similar, very similar. And I don't have to go into the release and the post productions and stuff like that. But I had no idea that this film was a part of No, I'm thinking about The Serpent and the Rainbow. I will talk about that right now. The Serpent and the Rainbow is a 1988 American horror film directed by Wes Craven and starring Bill Pullman. The script by Richard Maxwell and Adam Rodman is loosely based on the non-fiction book of the same name and ethnobotanist Wade Davis, wherein Davis recounted his experiences in Haiti investigating the story of Clavius Narcisse, who was allegedly poisoned, buried, and revived with an herbal brew which produced what was called a zombie. Wait. Clavius Narcisse was a Haitian man who claimed to have been turned into a zombie by Haitian voodoo and forced to work as a slave. That might be something I'm gonna read up on because it's a subject that because voodoo runs in my family on my mom's side of the family. So yes, this is gonna be something interesting. So yeah, in 1978, a Haitian man named Christophe mysteriously dies in a French missionary clinic while a voodoo parade marches past his widow. The next morning, Christophe is buried in a traditional Catholic funeral. A mysterious man dressed in a suit who was outside Christoph's hospital window on the night he died and is in attendance. As the coffin is lowered into the ground, Christoph's eyes open and tears run down his cheek. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. 7 years later, Harvard anthropologist Dennis Allen is in the Amazon rainforest studying rare herbs and medicines with a local shaman. He drinks a potion and experiences a hallucination of the same black man from Christoph's funeral, surrounded by corpses in a bottomless pit. So yeah, this scene was like they were traveling by a helicopter and they landed in the middle of the Amazon. So him and the guy that was with him came in, and I don't know why they didn't mention this in this part. I'm scrolling. Yeah, they didn't mention this part where yeah, they were invited to this into this by this little hut by a shaman, and that's when he tells him, because you know he was speaking I'm trying to think, was he speaking Creole or something? He was speaking Spanish, and the other guy didn't, the other guys understood what he said, so he told him, he convinced him to drink whatever it was, and that's when he started hallucinating, and he kept seeing he was seeing a black panther, and he was being chased by this black panther throughout the Amazon, and then when he finally realized he was he was tamed or whatever, so he started to play with the animal, and then once he got up, he realized the shaman was standing there, but the shaman had covered his face with the leaves, like the cloak, a leaves cloak like he had on. So he covered his face, and then when Dennis walked up to him, that's when he uncovered his face, and that's when a guy who becomes the antagonist in this movie starts to, like, he was hissing at him and growling at him, and that's when he woke up. So he goes to look for his airmen, and he realized the airman was in the helicopter dead, and he had like worms and maggots on him and stuff like that. I was like, what the fuck? So that part wasn't really explained, like what happened to him. Was he poisoned or what? I mean, he looked like he was poisoned because he didn't have any wounds on him. It looked like he just died, So yeah. So back in Boston, Alan is approached by a pharmaceutical. By the way, how he got out of the Amazon was like he, ran, and he managed to get to this street, and that's when that's how he ended up going back to the airport, and I guess back to Boston. Alan is approached by a pharmaceutical company looking to investigate a drug used in Haitian voodoo to create zombies. The company wants Alan to acquire the drug for use as a super anesthetic. The corporation provides Alan with funding and sends him to Haiti. Make sure this still recorded. Yeah, okay. So sends him to Haiti, which is in the middle of a revolution. Yep. Alan's exploration in Haiti, assisted by Dr. Marielle Duchamp, locates Duchamp, however you want to pronounce it, if you know when you French like me, Duchamp or Duchamp, locates Christophe, who is alive after being buried 7 years later. Alan is taken into custody, and before I get to that part, he goes into this hospital, the hospital where the Christophe guy died in. So he goes in. That's when he was introduced to Dr. Marielle, and she was telling him, "Have you heard about the guy who was supposed to come back as a zombie?" And then she sees this woman sitting at the window, and she tells him that she was apparently brought back as a zombie as well. And she showed him a photograph of Christophe standing near a wall because somebody had spotted him and took a picture of him, and they were probably like, "No way, man, we buried you." And he had like dreadlocks and stuff because at the beginning of the movie he was like completely bald. So yeah, that's when the pursuit, about this investigation was going on, in the pursuit for this super anesthetic this zombie drug that they want to talk about. So yeah, they started looking through different areas. They looked through like different cemeteries, and that's when they finally came across Christoph found him because he was telling him that they'll find him. He'll find him, and that's when he took off running. But yeah, Alan is taken into custody, and the commander of the Taunton Mukate, Captain Dargent Petrod, the same man from Christoph's funeral and Alan's vision in the Amazon, right, warns Alan to leave Haiti. He's like asking, "What's your business here?" and stuff like that. So continuing his investigation, Alan finds a local man, Mozart, who is reported to have knowledge of the procedure for creating the zombie drug. Alan pays Mozart for a sample, but Mozart sells him rat poison instead. After embarrassing Mozart in public, Alan convinces Mozart to show Alan how to produce the drug for free for a fee of $1,000. Alan is arrested again by the Taunton. Okay, again with this part, I recognize the actor who played Mozart. He was also in the movie called Life. He was one of those the guards with the guns, and he also played in one of Tyler Perry, one of Tyler Perry's shows called Meet the Brown, when he was that prejudiced patient who didn't want Will to operate on him because he was black. Yeah, he's been around for a minute. So yeah, Mozart. So when he went to the back with Mozart in this little area where Mozart has all the potions and the drugs and stuff stored in, he decided, he was like, I don't believe this, prove it. So that's when Mozart gives this drug. That's when a lady comes in with a black goat, little black baby goat. Forgive me if I don't know what it is. So yeah, he gives the goat the drug, and that's when it went to sleep. And let me see. I'm scroll. When he goes back, I'm trying to see. Yeah, and that I'm scrolling through. I remember the movie like scene by scene. I'm just looking at the. I'm just reading now. I've seen they left off some parts where Alan and Dr. Mariel actually go back to Mozart, and that's when he actually drank whatever it was that Mozart gave him, and he said, yeah, it was probably rat poison, and that he's like, show me the goat, and he comes in with a different goat and call him a fraud and walks out. And I think that's when he got, yeah, and that's when it gets to the point where he is arrested again by the Taunton Mukates and tortured by having a nail driven through his scrotum, and then dumped on the street with the message that he must leave Haiti or be killed. Alan again refuses to leave and meets with Mozart to create the drug. Yeah, so this with this part. So Mariella had met up with Mozart in a cemetery. So they brought in a dead body of a woman who was apparently a sorceress, and they did the ritual, to try to revive her, by doing mixing up things and stuff like that. And there was another scene where they didn't mention was when Mariella and Alan were at this area where these people were like, I guess they were like celebrating or having, just having fun. And that's when they got into he had a dream about that corpse, and that's when he saw the corpse of the sorcerer. That's when he like freaked out. And because he was sleeping by a tree with Mariella, and he wakes up, and that's when he started hearing a noise, and he saw Christoph standing there, and the bride who was the sorceress started coming to him, and that's when he wakes up. And when he woke up, he and Mariella decided they go under a waterfall and make love. And there's a topless scene, of course, and no scene of his dick, disappointingly, but yeah. So yeah, Alan has a nightmare of Putrod and revealed to be a Bokar. A Bokar is a voodoo witch for hire who is said to serve the Loa with both hands, practicing for both good and evil. Their black magic includes the creation of zombies and wagons, talismans that house spirits, who turns enemies into zombies and steals their souls. When Alan wakes up, he is lying next to Kristoff's sister, who has been decapitated because I think she was probably killed, was because when they were looking for him, the woman of the village, she wouldn't tell them where he was. So the sister was like, in the cemetery, in the cemetery. And that's when they was able to find him. That's where he was, Kristoff. So, the Tartan Mocates enter, take photos, and frame Alan for murder. Yeah, it's like this big scene where they just move in. Like, I'm like, you can't make it obvious that you guys killed her. Like, really. So, Petron told Alan to leave the country and never return, lest he be convicted of the murder, executed, and then his soul stolen by Petrod. Petrod puts Alan on a U.S. bound plane, but Mozart sneaks on board and gives Alan the zombie drug. Mozart asks Alan to tell his people about him, so that Mozart can achieve international fame. Alan agrees and returns to Boston with his mission apparently completed. Yeah, because Mozart came in like he was dressed up like one of the flight guys, the flight attendants. Wait, he was I forgot the name. Forgive me, but he was like dressed up like one of the guys at work at the airport. And that's when he gave Alan the potion and told him, remember me. So, at a celebration dinner, the wife of Alan's employer is possessed by Petron, who warns Alan of his own imminent death. Yeah, because he was like at the hotel with them and they were having dinner. And that's when she started coming across the table with a knife trying to, stab him. And she started flipping around on the table after she's being subdued by her husband and the other scientist that, the one who encouraged Alan to go to the country of Haiti to go obtain this potion for zombie reanimation of dead bodies. And yeah, she's I don't think she revived after the port, but I think at the pretty much the message then got out. She probably gonna be back to herself. So Alan returns to Haiti, where his only ally, a Huguen named Lucien Celine. Wait a minute, before they start, there was one part at the beginning when he first was introduced to Lucien. They had went to this festival, like I think it was like a voodoo festival. These people start dancing and things like that, but Mariella was like, I don't want to dance. So what happens was when she tried to walk off, one of the guys, one of the dancers spat something in her face, and that's when she started dancing around, like she was possessed or something like that. So yeah, I forgot to add that part. Yeah, it was a lot that went on with this movie. I should have took notes, but I just wanted to get this out of the way because how I am. It's been a while since I made a video. So a Hungan or an Ungan is the term for a male priest in Haitian voodoo. Excuse me. The term is derived from the Fon word Hanugan. Ungans are also known as Macandals. But yeah, when he returns to Haiti, I think he woke up the next day or something like that. That's when he ran into Lucien Celine, who is killed by Petron. By did he trying to see how did he kill Lucien. I think he did he use a voodoo doll? But yeah, you should really check this movie out. But yeah, Mozart is he was captured by Bertrand, and he was shackled like how they had those witches back in Salem, alleged witches, and they had them. I forgot what this thing was called. That's how he was strung up. Like, I mean, he wasn't strung up, but they had him like that with his arms wrapped around a pole or something like that, chained up. And yeah, Mozart is beheaded as a sacrifice for Petrarch's power. Alan is then sprayed with the zombie powder and dies. And at one point, Petrarch had drunk the blood of Mozart, because after he had killed Lucien, people were looking at him like, what's going, like, is this guy crazy or something? And that's when somebody, sprayed the zombie. Well, actually, they spat it in his face, the zombie powder. Or did they spray? No, I'm trying to remember. It was one or the other. And then he dies later. But he steals Alan's body from the hospital before the dead can be reported to the U.S. Embassy. Petrarch takes Alan to a graveyard where helpless in a coffin, and it's like when they take the drug or whatever, they in like a comatose state, like they can't move. They can they can move their eyes, but they can't move. They could cry and things like that, but they can't talk, communicate, like things like that. That's what that reminds me of. So, Petrarch takes Alan to a graveyard where, helpless in his coffin, Alan sees that Petrarch has captured Marielle and will sacrifice her. Petrarch shows Alan Celine's soul in a canary. Alan is then buried with a tarantula to keep him company. Waking up in his coffin a few hours later, Alan is rescued by Christophe, who was also turned into a zombie by Petrarch. Having escaped Petrarch's trap, Alan returned to the Tartan Makate. There, he defeats Petrarch through a battles of wills. And the thing is, like, when he was like going in, when he finally had got revived from the dead, he starts wandering through the streets and stuff like that, and you can see the people out there protesting because they were having like a revolution going on, like against their leaders. Probably won't be soon before this shit happens that in this country with crazy ass Biden, but we ain't going there. But yeah, they were like tearing down signs and burning them and stuff. It was like a big protest, but he managed to go into the Tartan Makate headquarters looking for Marielle. And so that scene is pretty crazy when he goes in there, using, he said, through the battles of wills, using Celine's white magic, excuse me, to drive a nail into Petrarch's groin and send his soul to hell. So yeah, this scene was pretty trippy. So like when he goes in, there was a scene where it's like he's trying to hang, like he's hanging from, like if you up in the air and you're holding on to something and your body's kind of flailing and stuff. That's what that looked like. Like I said, it reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street. And that part was like very, very trippy. Arms coming out of the walls, I believe. And yeah, just like that shit was crazy. And then when he seemed like he had defeated Petrarch, he'd always come back, and they throwing each other all over the goddamn room and shit. And the souls of like Celine and Mozart was like helping him in his quest to defeat Petrarch. And yeah, there was that scene where the chair started moving, and Petrarch ended up in it, and he got like strapped by the head. As you can see in the thumbnail, he got strapped by the head because he got burnt up because he was set on fire when he was down in that basement where he sacrificed Mozart. And That's when he started jumping out, blasting through walls and shit like that. I love this movie. I love both movies. So yeah, cause at that point when he was fighting Pedro, it's like Marielle had disappeared. Like where the hell did she go? And then when he finally got, he finally defeats him. That's when she's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, where the hell have you been, lady?" So, as the Haitian people celebrate the downfall of Jean-Claude Duvalier, Marielle proclaims the nightmare is over. So Jean-Claude Duvalier, named Baby Doc, was a Haitian politician who was the president of Haiti from 1971 until he was overthrown by a popular uprising in February 1986. That was around the time this movie was created, huh? He succeeded his father Francois Papa Doc Duvalier as the ruler of excuse me, Haiti after his death in 1971. But yeah, good movie. Very, very good movie. And apparently, this movie made it to the Curse films. So I'm trying to look it up. I'm on the page. I don't wanna. I haven't watched the movie yet, actually. I mean, the movie about the Curse film. So I'm thinking maybe one day I can. Since this made it to the Curse films, I don't understand why this. Uh, I'm not sure, but when I get around to watch a Curse film, I'm gonna let you guys know. I'm gonna do a review of that. But with that being said, hope you enjoyed this butchered up, battered up, duct taped up as as review. And as always, I really appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen. And if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, hit the like button. Show your support by donating, of course. And more content is coming soon. There will be another Wes Craven weekend with other films besides A Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, yeah, so be sure to check that out. And I'll see you guys next time. Au revoir.